Today's story covers two events from St. John Bosco's life: his incredible vision of the Handkerchiefs of Purity and his assistance in converting an apostate priest from Protestantism. You're watching The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Matthew Miller. It was on the night of the 14th when I had just fallen asleep, and I heard a great knocking on the headboard. I jumped up, thinking it was lightning. I looked around but saw nothing, so I went back to bed. But no sooner had I fallen asleep again than a second explosion wounded my ears and shook me. Then I got out of bed, searched around, and looked under the bed, under the coffee table, and in other areas of the room, but I saw nothing. Then I blessed myself with holy water and went back to bed. Then my mind began to wander, and I saw what I am about to narrate. It seemed to me that I was in the pulpit about to preach a sermon. The young men were all sitting at their seats, with their eyes fixed on me, waiting attentively for me to speak. Nevertheless, I did not know what subject to talk about or how to even begin the sermon. However much I struggled with my memory, my mind remained barren and empty. Thus I stood for some time, confused and distressed. Never had this happened to me before. Suddenly, the church turned into a great valley, and I couldn't believe my eyes. But what on earth is this? A moment ago, I was in the church, in the pulpit, and now I'm in this valley. Am I dreaming? I proceeded through the valley, looking for someone to ask for an explanation. I saw a beautiful palace with many large balconies. In front of the palace stretched a square. In one corner of it were a large number of boys standing around a lady who was handing out a handkerchief to each one of them. They took the handkerchief and went up and arranged themselves one after the other on that long terrace. I also approached that lady and heard what she was saying to all the young men. Never unfold it when the wind is blowing. If the wind surprises you when you have it unfolded, turn immediately to the right, never to the left. I watched all those young men, but I didn't know any of them at that moment. When the distribution of handkerchiefs was finished and everyone was on the terrace, they made one long line and stood there without even saying a word. I watched one young man take out his handkerchief and unfold it. Then another followed suit. The handkerchief was very wide, embroidered in gold with Regina Virtutum, Queen of Virtue, written on it. Suddenly, wind from the north came, and gradually it got stronger. As soon as this wind began, I saw some young men immediately fold their handkerchief and hide it. Others turned to the right. Others stood motionless with their handkerchief unfolded, flapping in the wind. Suddenly the wind became fierce, and a cloud covered the sky. Then a whirlwind arose. A tremendous thunderstorm broke out, and thunder rumbled fearfully. Hail fell, then rain, and finally snow. Many young men kept their handkerchiefs stretched out. The hail beat into it, piercing it from side to side, and the rain, whose droplets seemed to have a point, as did the snowflakes, pierced it. All those handkerchiefs were broken, pierced, and utterly destroyed in a moment. Stunned at this, I didn't know how to explain it. What was worse was that as I approached those young men whom I had not known before, having looked more carefully, I distinctly recognized all of them. They were my young men from the Oratory. I asked one of them, "What are you doing here? Are you so-and-so?" He answered, "Yes, I am." I then went to where that lady was handing out handkerchiefs. Some other men stood nearby, and I asked them, "What does all of this mean?" The lady turned to me and answered, "Did you not see what was written in those handkerchiefs?" "Yes, I did. Regina Virtutum." "Do you understand now?" "Yes, I do." Those young men exposed their virtue of purity to the wind of temptation. Some, at first noticing it, immediately fled and were the ones who folded and hid the handkerchief. Others, surprised and having had no time to hide theirs, turned to the right, and those who were in danger resorted to the Lord, turning their backs on the enemy. Others then stood with their handkerchief open to temptation, which made them fall into sin. At this sight, I remained frowning and was about to despair, seeing how few were those who had persevered in the beautiful virtue. I broke into a sorrowful cry for a while, and when I could calm myself, I asked, "But how is it that the handkerchiefs were pierced not only by the storm, but also by rain and snow? Don't these drops and snowflakes indicate venial sins?" One of the men replied to my question, "Don't you know that all matter is considered grave when purity is concerned? Nevertheless, don't toil, come and see this." One of the men advanced in front of the balcony, made a sign with his hand to those young men, and shouted, "Right face!" Almost all the young men turned to the right, but some did not move from the spot, and their handkerchiefs ended up entirely torn. Then I saw the handkerchiefs of those who had turned to the right become very tight, all patched and sewn up so that no hole could be seen. They were, however, in such a bad state that they were pitiful. They no longer had any regularity. Some were seen to be 3 palms long, some 2, and others 1. The lady meanwhile added, "Here boys had the misfortune of losing purity, but made up for it by confession. The others who did not move are those who continue in sin and may even go to hell. In the end," she said, "tell no one in particular, but give only a general warning." Thus Don Bosco finished the narration of his dream. But on that same day, the Lord rewarded Don Bosco's zeal by leading a lost sheep to him. While in the courtyard, a gentleman presented himself, saying he had to speak to him about a matter of great importance. Don Bosco led him to his room, and the man told him, "I am a priest. I deserted the sacred ministry to enlist under Garibaldi. I apostatized and became a Protestant, but I am unhappy and could never settle my conscience. Now I am in a deplorable state not only of soul, but of body. I want to return to my bishop, but how can I do this?" Don Bosco knew this poor wretch by reputation and answered him, "Go ahead, the bishop has already been informed of everything and is ready to receive you. Do you have any money for your journey?" "I have not a penny," said the wretch. Don Bosco gave him money for the journey and a shirt to change into. That poor priest asked Don Bosco for a book. "Yes, gladly," Don Bosco said, "but all I have is the breviary." "But that's all that I desire," said the man. "How unhappy are those who stray from the path of heaven." From this story and from the dream, we see that even those in sin, the worst of sin even, can reconcile with our Lord. So let's not wait another minute to examine our conscience and seek peace with Him. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you'd like to enroll in our Saturday Mass intentions for the promoters of St. John Bosco, please click on the link I've put on the screen. God bless you, and Our Lady keep you.